Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very interesting story to share with you today. You might have seen me talk about IPOB, talk about the Igbos on this channel. But today, there was an encounter I had like 2 years ago that really changed a lot of things. And I want to tell you a very nice story. Now, I wouldn't know how to make it brief. A lot of the young guys in the Southeast actually need reorientation. As Anambra is battling to curtail it, Enugu did it, Imo is fighting Abia, and even Ebonyi State. So I'm just to share with you my experience. And some people will be able to gain some things during it. Now, during the high points of the insecurity in the Southeast, I was actually arrested by a tactical team deeply involved in combating the ESN scourge. So I was taken to a private cell with a lot of the members. So it was a very difficult time. So after the team lead, which is the person, the police officer, discovered that I was somehow innocent, I began to be treated nicely by the police officers, though I was not released immediately. So I decided to make use of the time. A lot of things actually happened after some frustration. The first day was very tough mentally. If you go to prison, you must have mental toughness. Those were a few days. So after the few days, nobody knew where I was for the first 3 or 4 days. Till about before any person, even before they allowed me to make call. Like I said, I decided to make good use of that time and satisfy my curiosity. Now, one of the questions I had in my mind is, what are these guys doing this? So I engaged the police tactical team head that I would like to have a serious conversation with these guys in the cell with me at night. So he approved it. Now, at midnight, we began to talk because we are in the cell, we have abundant time. Sometimes the cell was dark, so we didn't even know when it was daybreak or thereabout. And sometimes we could wake up at night thinking that it's already morning now, without even knowing. Sometimes it's 3 o'clock or thereabout. So when I got the approval, we began to talk. So at midnight, we were engaged in a series of discussion and a kind of debates. So we got talking about a lot of things. And my question was, what is the idea behind this killing? What's the idea behind this struggle? And especially killing our people. Initially, they didn't actually listen to me much, but I pressed forward and told them that a lot of our young men languishing in cells like this doesn't make any sense and does not actually further the objective, nor does it advance any Igbo cause. And this is where I started getting a lot of their reactions and so many other things. So during those midnight discussions, I learned something very important. That 99% of the people don't really understand these guys and their thought process. I learned very, very quickly with my interactions with them that when a man's motivation for any cause becomes greater than the fear of death, the person becomes a very dangerous person, whether positively or negatively. Most of them were in that position by default. Now, and it dawned on me that there is power in the tongue. That was the place I actually understood that statement that said there is power in your tongue. Now, MNK did a very, very crazy work on these guys. Somebody did not do much job. And he is the gap or the vacuum that was left by our leaders. Now, MNK proved to me once more that there is power in spoken words. Almost 100% of these guys can lay their lives for this guy. And I can tell you that if today that federal government says he needs like 1,000 boys that will come in place of Nnamdi, they'll probably get like 10,000 boys. Now, they listened to constructive and sometimes insistent and subtle opinion, especially when it has to do with killings of our people. I must confess it was very difficult at first to have those constructive and logical discussions with them because a lot of them are highly radicalized. Now, as we began to talk, they gave me their ears and I discovered that we can still win some of these guys back by logically fighting. Now, in going to defeat these guys, It's not only going to be about kinetic approach alone. There are places for the kinetic approach. There are also places for the radicalization, which will take a very conscious and intentional effort by our people. A lot of people don't understand how deep these guys are. Let me give you an example. One of the police officers told me that uh, there was a guy that was brought to that place to tell you how these guys have no fear of death. There's no single fear of death into them. He said there was a guy that was brought to that place and he was handcuffed. So in one of the days where they were bringing him out of, I think they were taking him somewhere, he said the guy dived one police officer and beat this guy. The guy was treated maybe in a teaching hospital in Enugu. And that should be how, imagine police officer telling you that when you're telling somebody is going to, they will neutralize him or do this kind of thing, they don't really care so much about it. And it's part of the radicalization that they've gone through. Now, do you believe these people listen to a lot of people? So there are some people, they have a lot of sympathy from our young people. The leadership structure in the Southeast fuels this from my discussions with them. Now, this is another problem. A lot of them are being used sometimes by, they may not even know, by some opposition popular candidates. In most times in the Southeast, when people are handpicked, especially with the PDP structure in the Southeast, sometimes, let's assume the PG of a community now, or maybe the Igbo, or some of those things that are close, some of those posts that are very close to the people are most times handpicked. And most times they don't consider the people that should actually represent the interests of the people. That's the person who represents the people's wishes. Now they choose somebody who is very unpopular. And at the end of the day, the other guy who is very, very popular could actually use that popularity to actually disorganize a lot of the communities. You see all this imposition of candidates is a big problem in the Southeast. It's a big problem and contributes to insecurity because of the fundamental structure of the Southeast, which is a Republican. We are cephalous in nature, the government structure we have. So most times we don't have one king that is taking. We don't have this command structure that is actually centralized. Now, when a candidate with, like I've said, a candidate with high support can do every other thing. Now, what we have now is a people without influence and no one listening to them. Neither do they give interviews. You can imagine Southeast where some of our leaders can stay in office for like good 4 years without actually granting interviews. And then this is where the loopholes are created. And somebody is somewhere broadcasting to the people, talking to them on social media every day. And this will get hold of these guys. If you watch the Western world, they don't play with that. The president comes on air every time, talks to these people every time, he's on news, talking, always communicating his ideas to the people. His aides will do their own. The guy gets to work, granting interviews. But these things are not really attended to in our place. They are left or checked, and therefore, a lot of these guys could come and fit into that place and feed these guys with a lot of wrong information. How do we actually get out of this? Now, if we must defeat this scourge of violence that is actually going up in society and recognize a lot of them, we have to come up with organized, factual, and logical media campaign against insecurity. Now, and this thing, we must overwhelm a lot of all these fabrications online with facts, with things like that are central to the Igbo culture and tradition. We need people with credible voices to do this job subtly, frontally, and brutally. Everyone cannot do this job. It has to be done by people with very credible voice. To encourage people to talk about this issue respectively. We must have open conversations and have them. Even both the guys in ESN, the IPOB, apologists, and every other person, they could come on board to talk about this. Sideline any person does not make sense. And it's unable to have all this. I see some people close opening spaces, and if you tell anything, they just remove you. Shutting down voices don't align with our core leadership structure in the Southeast. Now, it's anti-Igbo. We have to allow everyone to talk, even if we don't agree with that person. Their chances to speak must be protected. And I see a lot of people in these places. Nobody is more Igbo than the other. We all have to listen to each other. We have to make sure that a lot of these guys have to get them to talk. I know a lot of them are very difficult to talk with. But the only thing that can expose what we consider as their foolishness or their craftiness or anything is when we have this open conversation. You say your own, I say my own, and let's see if the best one will fly. But when we create a kind of an echo chamber, and that's what they do very, very well in trying to indoctrinate these guys, is only nobody has a right to question anything. But we must continuously talk about this kind of thing.